Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving headfirst into the wild, wearable world of vitamin patches. We're going to look at what they actually do, the massive business behind them, and what this all means for the future of wellness. Let's get right into it. Here's our roadmap for today: the supplement industry boom, how vitamin patches work, convenience over clinical efficacy, the FDA regulation illusion, and building consumer trust. All right, Section 1, the supplement industry boom. To understand the patch craze, we have to look at the market. The dietary supplement space is an absolute juggernaut, currently valued at a highly competitive $60 billion. Young people are prioritizing their health more than ever, and man, is it showing up on company balance sheets. But here's what's really wild: just how crowded that space is. There are roughly 100,000 different products out there right now, all fighting for a spot in your medicine cabinet. I mean, standing out in a sea of 100,000 options, that takes some serious disruption to the status quo. And that brings us to Barrière. They're a wearable patch company disrupting the space with some explosive retail growth. Right now, they boast a $19 million valuation. After doing a successful 50-store test last year, they're expanding to 1,700 Walmart locations and are currently available in over 6,000 stores total. With 2026 revenue projected to hit $10 million, this proves we're looking at way more than just a niche fad. So what's actually driving all this demand? Well, it's a mix. You've got a massive push from health influencers sharing their daily routines on TikTok and Instagram. But we're also seeing broader political and social forces converging here, like the Make America Healthy Again movement, and a growing stance on ending what critics are calling the FDA's war on vitamins. Regardless of where you personally stand on that, together, these cultural trends are just skyrocketing consumer demand. Moving on to Section 2, how vitamin patches work. Okay, so how do these things physically work? The crucial mechanism here is transdermal delivery. It's pretty straightforward. Step 1, you just slap the patch on your skin. Step 2, your natural body heat activates the ingredients. And Step 3, those ingredients are delivered transdermally, meaning right through the skin, bypassing your stomach entirely to enter your bloodstream directly. They literally have patches for everything now, from nausea to, get this, the world's first lactose relief patch. To ground this in reality, a CNBC reporter actually put Barrière's motion sickness patch to the test. Now, this one contains ginger, peppermint, and B6. They tested it out in stop-and-go traffic and then out on the highway. The verdict? The reporter noted that while they still felt a little nauseous, it was noticeably less nauseous than they usually feel on a car ride. So, anecdotally at least, we are seeing some functional relief taking place. Section 3, convenience over clinical efficacy. This really highlights a core marketing strategy for these brands. Traditional oral supplements, they're often seen as clinical, unglamorous pill popping. Vitamin patches, on the flip side, are marketed as trendy, convenient, and stylish. Companies are explicitly mirroring the massive popularity of stylish pimple patches. Think brands like Starface. They're essentially turning the mundane act of taking a vitamin into a younger skewing fashion statement. Which leads us to what is easily the most important question of this entire explainer. Do they actually work? Does a stylish little sticker really deliver the vital nutrients your body needs? Well, as one industry voice rather bluntly put it, we are choosing convenience over clinical efficacy because we don't know if they're effective, but it's a tiny little patch. You know, experts point out that marketing is usually way ahead of the science in this industry. It highlights this fascinating behavioral shift where consumers are perfectly willing to trade proven clinical results for pure convenience. Because the scientific reality here is pretty stark. When we look at oral supplements, there are hard clinical studies showing they actually correct nutrient deficiencies. But for vitamin patches, the strong clinical evidence is largely lacking. The assumption is that because the ingredients are small, they penetrate the skin and become bioavailable. But for something like, say, a vitamin D patch, the hard clinical backing just isn't there yet compared to swallowing a traditional pill. Let's zoom in specifically on Barrière's clinical trial reality. While they do use medically validated questionnaires, they've actually only conducted one real clinical trial. It had a really small sample size, just 30 subjects, and crucially, it completely lacked a control group for comparison. Why? Well, rigorous U.S. clinical trials are incredibly cost prohibitive. And honestly, more importantly, they simply aren't legally required to sell these products in America. Which brings us to Section 4, the FDA regulation illusion. There is a staggering statistic at play here. Nearly half of the public, 48%, operates under a complete illusion. They incorrectly assume that the FDA regulates their dietary supplements with the exact same strict scrutiny as their prescription medications. Actually, scratch that. It's not even close. The reality lies in the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994. This is the legislation that still largely governs how supplements are regulated today. It classifies these products as food rather than pharmaceuticals. So the crucial takeaway here is that the FDA doesn't step in to proactively regulate these vitamins. That leaves safety entirely on the shoulders of the brands themselves. In fact, the government has had to issue warnings to hundreds of wellness brands in recent years just for making unsubstantiated claims. All right, final section. Section 5, Building Consumer Trust. So since the government isn't strictly vetting these products, how on earth are companies convincing consumers to trust them? Well, Barrière is attempting to bridge this massive trust gap through a multi-step strategy. Even though they're headquartered right here in the US, they explicitly manufacture their products in the UK at facilities regulated by the UK's FDA equivalent. They also utilize third-party lab testing, which, again, isn't legally required. Their hope is that by heavily focusing on transparency and education, they can signal higher safety and compliance standards to their customers. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question. Will transparency and UK lab testing actually be enough to win over the discerning wellness consumer? Or does the science fundamentally need to catch up to the marketing? I mean, in a booming $60 billion Wild West, will clever branding and voluntary testing be enough to sustain this wearable trend? Or will hard clinical science eventually have to take the wheel? Thanks for joining me, and I hope this helps you think critically about the very next wellness trend you see pop up on your feed.